Good morning, everyone. My name is George. I consider myself very, very lucky to be one of Bill's friends. I became his friend through teaching. We were both teachers at Foreman High School. We met early on in both of our careers. We would talk about things in the lunchroom with other teachers where we would be together. We happened to have the same lunch periods, which was, again, just good fortune. And soon after the year started, we both decided that the lunchroom was not the place that we wanted to have lunch, and it was simply because lunchrooms are where teachers talk about their students, and we didn't like many of the conversations that were taking place in the lunchroom about the students. Foreman High School is a Chicago public school, and in our system, we provide choice to our students, and so you can select which schools you go to, and if you perform very highly and you achieve, you can select certain schools. And Foreman is not one of the ones that you select as one of your top choices. So the students that came to Foreman are somewhere to the left, on the left side, or, on the right side of that bell curve that we talk about in education all the time. So we'd leave, and we would talk about our students and try to figure out why we weren't getting across to them. And we had a lot of conversations about the selected mathematics curriculum and how it just didn't line up with the culture of the students that we were serving. And that became a big focus for us in talking about our math education for our students. We also talked about other things. In mathematics, mostly, we talked about the equity in math education, the resources that many of our students didn't have in order to be able to reach their goals. And we also talked about the beauty of mathematics a lot, and that was the philosopher side of Bill, which was, again, my great pleasure to have those conversations with him. We talked at length about the golden ratio and Fibonacci sequences and the paintings of Michael Escher and their meaning mathematically. So that was a growing time for us both. And to Bill's great credit, he always made it about the students. Well, at some point we decided, let's visit each other's classrooms. I'll see why you can't seem to get across, and he'll look at my work and explain to me why I can't get across to my students. And so we would develop plans together, and then I would implement in my classroom and he would watch. And vice versa, we would implement plans together, and I would go to his classroom when he delivered, and I would watch. And what I saw in his classroom was such a grace of delivery, such a kindness and a demeanor that the students would respond to so well. They still didn't get the math, but they responded very well to him. They would treat each other like he would treat his students, which was something really special to see. And later, I moved on, but in moving on from Foreman High School, he said to me one day, or I said to him, I hope we're going to remain friends and continue our conversations because these have been so enriching for me. And he said, there's a lot of connections between us, my children and you and your children, and we talked about children all the time, and being there for our children, being fathers, and he said, well, those connections will continue, and they sure did, which was, again, I just consider myself very lucky there. As time went on, Bill moved on to become a trainer of teachers in newly developed mathematics reform curriculums that were intended to reach more students. We talked about those, and there was difficulty even with our reform curriculums reaching our students. And again, Bill would say it's about knowing our students. He became the department chairperson of his school as the mathematics chair, and eventually in that role he became a national board certified teacher. And he called me and let me know he was doing the national board process. And I said, why didn't you let me know? So the following year I did the same process. And I would not have made it if he hadn't been there for me. Always Bill being my mentor. And I remember I sent him my goals for my lesson that I would submit for national certification. And he said, George, the goals look good, but this is a goal that I might set for an entire year, so you might have to revise this. So I did, and he guided me through, and I made it. And we were lucky enough to go through a process where the receivers of their award would do it in front of the next class. And so when he was receiving his award, I was sitting in front of him and being part of that next class. And in receiving his award, when he gave his speech to the people, to us, the group, he said, one of my mentors is sitting here today, and he called me on me. He said, George, it's our conversations that led me to get here. And I thought, that's backwards, but okay. He went on, after that, I moved on to being a coach for mathematics teachers, which means that you go from classroom to classroom and help teachers with their teaching of mathematics. And he followed me in that endeavor, and he became a coach also. And this was in the last just couple of years that he became a coach. And still, we had these same conversations about why we treat the students the way we do, and why that curriculum doesn't match up with what our students' culture is all about. And again, it was all about equity and justice for him. And now, as I'm at the University of Illinois going through a program in a PhD program, all of the research that I'm reading now is about how funds of knowledge are the important part about teaching mathematics. funds of knowledge is what the students bring with them. And to Bill's credit, he knew this in the 90s when we first started our conversations. And so I still think that he was right. He was absolutely right. And all I can say is that as a master teacher and as a teacher from the very beginning, his students were very, very lucky, as I was very, very lucky to have him as a teacher. And I'll tell you that Maureen and the boys, Aaron, those students, the curriculum for them was Bill. Bill was their curriculum. He was for them what he has been for all of us. And whether or not they learned the mathematics was not the important part, as you said.